Meeting to order. This is the November 19th meeting of the Concord City Planning Board. Mr. Clerk?
Sure.
Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll?
Certainly. Chair Woodfin.
Here.
Mr. Hicks.
I'm here.
Mr. Fox.
Here.
Mr. Tarbo.
Here.
Ms. Condon Matraki.
Here.
Ms. Rosenberger.
I think I'm here.
Councillor Todd.
Here.
Mr. Santa Cruz absent. Member Savage also absent. We do have a quorum.
And did you get Fox? David?
Mr. Fox. I apologize. Thank you.
That would be me.
All right, so we do have a quorum. We'll move forward. First item on the agenda tonight's approval of the August minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the the October, it says August. See, look, it says August.
It does.
So, motion and a second to approve the October 15th minutes as submitted. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Any abstentions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And we'll move on to an agenda overview. First item on the agenda overview is the reappointment of two members to the Architectural Design Review Committee with terms to expire in 2028. Those two members are Elizabeth Durfee-Hengen and Ron King. Would someone like to make a motion to reappoint those two members to the Architectural Design Review Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, listen up. If you're out in the audience here, we've got a lot of items on the agenda that have been continued at the applicant's request to additional meetings in December and January. So first up on the motion, on the continuances is item 6A, which is a 1 to 7 McGuire Street major site plan. That I'm going to do them all in one shot. Is that okay? Items 6B and 6C, which are 65 North Main Street, Phoenix Block, major site plan, and item 6C, which is Phoenix Avenue, Phoenix Block, major site plan, as well as item 9A, which is 75 Store Street, architectural design review, 9A and 9F, which is Phoenix Block minor subdivision. Those have all been requested by the applicant to move to the December 17th meeting. Would someone like to make a motion to move those items off the agenda and to the December 17th meeting?
So
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And one more, again, the request of the applicant to move to the January 21st, 2026 meeting at the request of the applicant. Item 9B, minor subdivision for 131 Shaker Road. Would someone like to make a motion to move that item to the January meeting? I'll make that motion. Would someone like to second it?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So again, if you're here for 6A, 6B, 6C, 9A, 9F, 9B, all of those items will not be heard tonight. No public testimony on those. So that moves us rapidly on to the first item on our agenda, which is design review applications by consent. Let's look and see what we got. So just 5A and 5B on our design review applications by consent. If anyone's here for items 5A and 5B, applications by consent are done based on feedback that we've gotten from Architectural Design Review, the application that's in our packets. Would anybody like to request that those be pulled from the design review by consent in the audience? Any member of the board have any of those items ought to be pulled from consent? If not, I'll take a motion to approve items 5A and 5B as submitted with Architectural Design Review recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Brings us on again to item 7, extensions by consent. There's none. Item 8. Let's read our first public hearing, design review applications, item 8A. If we could read that into the record.
Certainly. In accordance with Section 28-94F8, request for reconsideration of the zoning ordinance, New England Life Care on behalf of TDL Investments, LLC, requests reconsideration of the architectural design review decision made by the Planning Board at their September 17, 2025 meeting, where the board conditionally approved a new 14.3 square foot internally illuminated wall sign and a 21.25 square foot internally illuminated panel replacement in an existing freestanding sign at 374 Loudon Road in the Gateway Performance District.
Okay, is the applicant here? No?
I'll give a quick little update, and then I'll ask Alec to provide a little bit of feedback. This request asks the planning board to reconsider the decision on ADR from September 17. That section of the ordinance reads that an applicant who is aggrieved of the decision by the planning board under this section may request reconsideration of the application by the board, which shall place the application on the next available agenda for further consideration. The applicant may provide additional materials and information in support of the request. The board may seek further recommendations from the Design Review Committee prior to rendering a decision on the reconsidered application. In this case, what the applicant is asking for is the board reconsider the requirement of the opaque background on the freestanding sign and allow the panel to be redesigned and installed without that requirement. And the staff takes no position on this request.
I'll bet. That's the first time, I've known this a long time, I've never seen a request for reconsideration of the zoning ordinance come before us, but, so you heard the overview and you've got the information in the excerpt in your packet. It is, which one is it on the, if I'm looking at the,
It's
it's
the
the
New
two
England
top
Life Care.
ones,
It's the one with the gray background.
middle one all the way across. And they, just clarification, they want to leave it as a white sign,
It is a white sign
a white blank spot.
where you see the gray. It's a night picture.
Yeah.
And they put an opaque background behind it, and that is what they installed. And they are requesting not to have that background.
They're basically asking to be able to redo the panel because they are concerned that the sign as it's currently out there isn't readable from the public.
Okay, so the grays will turn to whites, basically, and the text that's white will turn to blue probably, or some other color, right?
Just that gray block behind the left side of the sign. They're asking not to. There's an opaque background there.
Right.
The sign itself is white.
Okay,
When it's
so it's
internally illuminated.
I got you. So it's just the background that's sitting on the back behind it. So the sign doesn't need to be redone, it just needs to have the opaque
background
background
would need to be removed.
It's our understanding what the applicant is requesting.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board? Considerations, yay, nay? Anybody have a thought process?
The other thing you can do with this, if you want to get further input from the ADR, you can refer this back for their recommendation for the next meeting.
That might not be a bad idea. I don't know if anybody's has a thought either way on that.
Just to clarify, it will still have the opaque background,
Will not.
No, the
will
applicant is requesting to remove the opaque background.
so white and no opaque.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd be inclined to defer back to architectural design review since this is in their wheelhouse.
Sure.
If I'd like to make a motion to refer this back to ADR for review and see what they say.
I'll make that motion.
All
Second.
right.
And continue to the December 17th.
And continue it to the December 17th meeting. So we'll have an architectural design review meeting before planning?
Yes.
Okay.
So I amend my motion to include that.
Yep. So in the motion to include that, right. So we got a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion? Excuse me, before we do that, it is a public hearing, so I open it up for any public testimony if anybody has any questions regards this. If not, I'll close the public hearing, make sure I stamp it right and do it the right way. So we got a motion and a second on the table. Further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, so it'll be referred back to architectural design review. Moves us on to section 9 in our agenda. I believe 9C is the first up, correct?
That is correct.
All right, hit me.
That is Smarmalimi Earth LLC requesting approval for a minor subdivision application and certain waivers from the subdivision regulations for a 3-lot subdivision at tax map 11Z, lot 52, addressed as 138 Snow Pond Road in the open space residential district.
Okay, is the applicant here? Come on up. Okay, let's get a staff update on this.
This application calls for the subdivision of approximately 36-acre parcel currently containing a barn and a single-family detached dwelling that are in significant disrepair and will be soon demolished to ensure public safety. The project calls for the subdividing of the parcel into 3 lots for future construction of single-family detached dwellings. Staff is recommending the application be determined as complete and conditional approval per the recommendations in the staff memo.
Okay, so again, I think We have a determination of completeness component in this. Staff has determined the application completes not a development of regional impact, and to open the public hearing, would someone like to make a motion to find the application complete and open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, so public hearing is open. Welcome to the table. If you guys could state your names for the record, please.
My name is Molly Taylor. I'm one of the
You can
property
sit,
owners.
you can sit there. It'll pick you up. That's good.
I'm Marcia Brown. I'm the mom that bought this property for my 3 daughters. That's why it's subdivided
Significant
into 3.
disrepair is probably being nice, right? I think that's probably being,
Did you see the pictures?
I did, but
Okay.
I'm familiar with it anyways.
Been that way a long time.
Yeah. The only thing I wanted to mention is, and I appreciate that the staff got the review in so quickly. It looked like in the staff review there was some kind of mention that we needed a conditional use permit, and I think that was included in error, that we don't need one because we're not even in the wetland buffer. Thank you. Just wanted to make that
Is that correct?
staff note error.
Okay, we'll confirm that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the project, if you could.
So the project is to divide this property into 3 for myself and my other 2 sisters so that we can all be neighbors together. My sisters will not be in a position to build for many years into the future, but my husband and I are newly married, and we are looking to build our house on proposed Lot 2 in the future. We are really passionate about the history of this property. It's one of the original settling families of Concord, and so we want to preserve that history in the landscape as we restore this property. And this is beside the subdivision, but we are looking to incorporate historic aspects of the original house into ours to honor that history.
I'll make note that they are in-house design. They are actively looking to build next construction season. And so when she has said years, daughter number 3 will build within 5 years. Daughter number 2 will build probably within 3 or 4 years. So just not that many years.
Not decades.
But thank you. Yeah.
Okay, any feedback or questions on the recommendation from staff to deny the waiver request under, there's a couple waiver requests that were requested and staff's recommending denying those. We just like to ask if there's any feedback or reasons why they should be reconsidered and brought forward.
There were 2 data elements that were missing from the submitted plans, and that was my oversight, the topography and the soils layer. The file that I reviewed was not the same file that I printed in haste, so I do apologize for that. That will be included and finalized. There are permits that are recommended, and we are happy to work with city staff on getting those for the septic and the well permit. And city staff also made recommendations on the driveway design, and we're happy to follow that. Overall, again, the city staff have been so helpful in all of this and guiding us, so I do want to emphasize that they've been very, very, very helpful, and we appreciate it.
Okay, so you understand when it comes through from our end, the recommendation to deny those waivers is coming back, and you'll be able to provide that
Yeah,
information.
it's reasonable. We're happy to continue to
Okay.
work with city staff to make sure that everything is satisfied.
Okay, great. Questions from the board? You remember the audience have any questions or concerns about this application? Okay, hang on just a second. Any other comments from staff or anything else?
Just that there were no conditional use permit applications as part of this, so.
No, yeah, and sorry, not to, the original application showed some potential impacts. The applicant they had continued this application for a few months, cleaning up a few things. And the section, I think it's 2.2 of the staff report, referenced is just a copy-paste error further in their staff report.
Perfect.
In section 6, we state there are no CUPs required.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Okay, we'll have you guys step back and come on up.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Can you make sure you sign in, please?
You're signed in. I'm signing in our neighbor.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, if you could state your name for the record?
Sure. My name is Gina Cannon. I'm one of the abutting properties at 141 Snow Pond. So I came tonight because I was confused at reading the staff report about saying the conditional use for the wetlands buffer and then not the conditional use for the wetlands buffer. we also have part of that wetlands buffer run through our property, and I just wanted, and I had a chance to talk with Marcia ahead of time, and her daughter and I are very similar in the ideas that we want to maintain that wetlands buffer. We're actually in the process of trying to get rid of, pull out by hand, the invasive species, and trying to replant native species in that buffer. We've talked to DES, so don't panic. But my concern was like, what's going on with the wetlands buffer? And then the other thing that's kind of ironic is that Marcia and I went to law school together, so she was a couple years behind me, I think. But so my concern was the wetlands buffer, completely, 100%. So I'm glad to hear that the buffer isn't going to be touched. The other piece is that those two pieces of building that are there are very, very dangerous. Prior to this property being sold, the executor of the estate of the late person who lived there had actually asked me to try and keep an eye. We had a heck of a time, because we're across the street, keeping homeless people out of those properties, keeping people off the property from stealing stuff that was on the property still that was part of the estate. So I'm very happy to see that someone bought the property. They have been very, very proactive in trying to clean up that property. All of the neighbors are very happy that that property is in the massive undertaking. I don't know if any of you have seen that property, but the massive undertaking to clear up that property and do something, I don't want to say constructive, because construction and constructive, but do something positive with that property. So we're all in favor of this. My only concern was the wetlands buffer.
Yeah,
So.
and that's not a concern, so there you go.
Great.
Well,
So
thank you
that
very much for your testimony.
Thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the public? No? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Comments from the board or staff, anybody? If not, we'll move on to recommendations in our packet here. Okay, so 9.1, again, using the information that was presented in our packets, the testimony that we heard here tonight, and the information regarding the property as our findings of fact. We'll base all the decisions on that information that was provided. Up first on our agenda is 9.2, grant the waiver request below for the listed sections of the subdivision regulations based on the evidence provided showing that criteria RSA 674-36-2N2 and section 3508 of the subdivision regulations are met, and those are outlined in section 1208 for existing condition plans, section 13016 state federal permits. I'm not going to list all these, so we'll do A, B, C, and D under the grant waiver request. Would someone like to make a motion to grant those waiver requests as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 9.3 is to deny the waiver request below for the listed sections of the subdivision regulations because the request does not meet the criteria of 674 36-2N1 or 2 or section 35.08 of the subdivision regulations, and those are outlined in A, B, C, that's it, A, B, and C. Would someone like to make a motion to deny those waiver requests as outlined? I'll make that motion. We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 9.4 is to grant minor subdivision approval for the 3-lot subdivision of tax map lot 11Z52 unaddressed Shaker Road. Is that right? Or is it
No, you're on
Snow Pond?
this is Snow Pond.
Subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions, and that's outlined in precedent conditions 1 through 8 and subsequent conditions 1 through 4. Would someone like to make a motion to grant minor subdivision approval as outlined?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set. Step 1's done. Good luck. We'll see you again. Okay, let's move on in our agenda. If we could, item 9D.
This is Nobis Group on behalf of St. Paul's School. Requests approval for a major site plan application, architectural design review, and conditional use permit for disturbance to wetland buffers, and certain waivers from the site plan regulations for this construction of a 17,600 square foot building addition, relocated squash courts, and other site improvements at tax map 724Z, lot 110A, addressed as 80 Dunbarton Road, and tax map 811Z, Lot 1A, addressed as 117 Dunbarton Road in the institutional and open space residential districts.
Okay, the applicants are making their way to the table. Let's get a staff update on this if we could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This application is for a major site plan, conditional use permit, and architectural design review was determined complete at the October 15th Planning Board meeting and proposes the relocation of the St. Paul School squash courts into an expanded athletic and fitness center at their campus. This project is one of several planned by St. Paul's as part of their long-term campus improvement plans, which are expected to be presented to the city for approvals over the course of the next several years. This proposal specifically consists of that 17,600 square foot building addition, associated site improvements, and several waiver requests. We note that one of those is something staff is amenable to changing our staff recommendation from denial to a partial waiver related to the boundary survey information, provided the information the applicant provides is sufficient in the area where the project is being constructed. Alec will go over that a little bit further when we get a little further along the discussion. Staff is recommending conditional approval of ADR, CUP, and the major site plan per the recommendations in the memo.
Excellent. Welcome to the table. If you could state your names for the record.
Hi, I'm Morgan Dunson with Novus Group.
Hi, Bill Massey, Senior Director of Facilities and Planning at St. Paul School.
Republic with Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell.
Welcome back. Tell us a little bit about this project. First time for me for squash courts. I haven't had those on the agenda before, so it's very exciting.
It's the new thing.
It's the new
It's
thing.
not new.
No, it's not.
St.
It's
Paul's built the
coming
first
back.
squash courts in the U.S.
I was going to say squash court's been around forever at St. Paul's.
It's a prep school staple.
They don't want to call them pickleball courts yet. So
Was it right after you invented hockey?
we claim that as well, so take it all with a grain of
all
salt.
right. Well, welcome again back to the table. Let's get this underway, and we'll see what we got here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I'll just give a very basic overview of our site. This image right here gives a very good aerial image of what the existing athletic and fitness center AFC building currently looks like, and St. Paul's is planning to expand and relocate their squash courts right in this back of house type area. And so there are going to be some minor improvements to this parking lot. We're going to keep the parking lot pretty much exactly the same. I think we are adding some parking spaces, I believe 7. And we are going to keep the access road that goes down to the bottom part of the building. This will be a facility only 12-foot wide access road to provide secondary egress for the AFC building itself and the squash addition. I will go to the site plan. I'm sorry if this is a bit confusing. It's hard to show 2 floors in a 2D view, but this red line right here indicates the second floor of the squash courts, which would be where the squash courts are actually provided, and this will be at level or a little bit above grade of the existing parking lot right here. And you can see where we're proposing to do some repaving of the parking lot, and this is to install the new storm water system for treatment. This little blue square right here is the level 1 build out, and this is going to be a fitness area, you know, treadmills, ellipticals, that type of area. This bottom space right here is just going to be an outdoor space for teams to meet up after an event and such. We're still providing a access road that would go underneath the building and to the bottom of, oh my gosh, page right. Let's see, we did go to ZBA last November, and we got variances for the reduction in parking to allow 96 spaces where 1,000 334 are required, and to allow disturbance within the wetland buffer for the building. We also went to Conservation Commission in October for a conditional use permit for disturbance within a wetland buffer for the grading improvements that we are proposing to do. Well, I can slide down that too. Okay, this is just, I know Jeff isn't here, I thought he would like this slide. But this shows, on top is the fire truck radius. Again, the parking lot is going to remain as is, so there are no changes there, as well as a charter bus for students to get dropped off and on. So it just shows that we are providing enough access way for vehicles. And the biggest civil change for this back space is we're proposing for stormwater treatment with the addition of the building. So the building will be tied into a subsurface gallery under the existing parking lot, and it will treat, and we are hitting less of the peak flows in post-development. We did submit for AOT, and they only had one comment back to us, so that was good news. We're also proposing just some drainage underneath as well, and I could get into this now or I could wait later about one of the waiver requests, but basically one of my waiver requests was for this little catch basin that's kind of tucked away between the two buildings, for to use a different detail with a sump that's 1 foot versus 3 feet. And that's erosion. I can go into stormwater details.
So scroll up just a bit, sorry. Just
Oh,
skip by one
yes.
there. Keep going up.
Keep going. Tell me when to stop.
One more. Oh, no, sorry, one more, I guess. Oh, darn it.
Stormwater?
Sorry, I thought I saw it go by. I'm looking at the elevation, and it is hard to visualize it when you're looking at the plans. I'm looking at number 2.
There we go.
I'm looking at number 2, right there. So right on the right-hand side, down at the bottom right corner. So just for my own edification here, so coming out of the parking lot up on the left, so in the bottom right, go down to the bottom right, and then just if you can zoom in on that.
This one right
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're coming down in the front at ground level, getting up and going under the building, and there's going to be steel girders to the left and right, and you're going to have a little driveway that comes out from the end. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, this better depicts what I'm showing in 2D.
Right.
It's
Yeah, it
kind of
does.
confusing on my plans.
On the
and
other,
I-
on the flat one it is, and I just wanted to make sure I was understanding it correctly. Okay.
The photo simulations on the left are also helpful, I think, to get a better picture of what it
Flat
potentially
level.
look like.
Yeah.
And the underbuilding fitness area that's part of this as well.
So, and you said the underspace, so the road that goes under there, and then there's going to be additional space under there for teams or whatever to gather?
That's that picture right there.
Yep, this
Oh,
is
that's it, okay.
the rendering. That's what it would
Looks
look
much
like.
better than
Looks awesome. I wish I was still in high school.
I know, that's quite
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I was just gonna show the landscape plan just to briefly touch on that as well. Oh. Landscape grading. Okay, I'm almost there. I thought I saw it. One more? Nope. It's a lot of plans. There we go, color. There we go. There you go. So you can see where we are proposing to do some reseeding, some additional tree planting. And it's pretty, as you can see in this aerial image, I mean, it abuts the woods. So we are trying to preserve as much of the trees as possible.
You know, Morgan, the one thing I might add is, the parcel boundaries that exist today run right through the existing building, which is not ideal. And so one of the recommended conditions of approval is to merge the lots so that we don't have a boundary that falls in not only the building but the area of disturbance for the project. And that led to a discussion of surveying the full extent of those parcels. They're massive parcels. They're all part of the campus. The one in particular is largely wetland and undevelopable and runs 100+ acres down into the lowlands. And so one of the waivers we had requested was to be excused from surveying all of the boundaries of the property. And staff said, no, you've got to at least know where it's running through the building areas. And so I think what we've hit upon as a compromise is to isolate an area that surrounds the project, the building, the area of disturbance, asked to be excused from survey for what is outside of that. I think it's an oval. I keep calling it a circle.
I do have this. I can
There
pass
you go.
this around, and we can put it into the meeting minutes as well.
So I anticipate a reference to an exhibit,
go.
and that would be the reference to explain what's to be surveyed for boundary purposes, but then where we're going to be excused from surveying the bounds of these very large parcels that are not affected by the project.
I think when we get to the discussion of the actual waiver requests and staff recommendations, Alec will have a suggested motion on that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So you
You
guys
do it.
discussed it, hopefully?
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right, continue.
Let's see. Just trying to see if I touched on everything that I wanted to. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have any questions?
It is an oval.
It is an oval. He gave me a Sharpie sketch and I tried to make it look fancy.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question on the underground driveway that goes underneath the building. Because I saw that bridge get tagged by the boat last couple of years ago and collapsed, and I'd hate for your building to fall. Has that been contemplated, and in case there's an accident? I'm saying, yeah, you're not concerned about that?
Definitely, yes.
It's not a regular vehicular access route. It's more for maintenance purposes to reach the far side of the building. And the staff for the school will be very familiar with what vehicles can fit in, what can't.
Okay. Other questions from the board? No? Any member of the audience have any questions or concerns about this application? No? Okay, thank you very much. We'll close the public testimony and let's move on to our decision-making phase. Jeez.
It's gonna take a while.
Yeah. Okay, my goodness. So, all right, so again, using in our, the findings of fact, the information that we heard here tonight from the applicant, the copious amounts of material that were provided with the plan set, we'll use those as our findings of fact and base our decisions on those. So first up is the waiver requests below, and we've got 9.2
A through Q would
A
be
through
supported by,
Q.
and then I'll turn it over to Alec for.
Okay, so let's hit those A through Q with recommendation from staff to grant those waivers. Would someone like to make a motion to grant those waivers as outlined?
Second.
Motion's been made and roundly seconded. Any discussion?
one moment.
Whoops, sorry.
Staff has some discussion.
Oh, staff has some discussion.
Staff would also recommend that you add RST as recommended waivers. I'll read them out loud. A waiver, and these are the three waivers staff previously recommended denial for. And instead, we recommend approval of section 15031 property lines to not provide on the existing conditions plan the property lines of the parcel outside of the project vicinity as shown on Exhibit E, parcel boundaries dated September 17, 2025, provided by Novus Group, presented during the public hearing. S, section 15041 property lines to not provide on the site plan the property lines of the parcel outside the project vicinity as shown on Exhibit E, parcel boundaries dated September 17, 2025, provided by Novus Group and presented during the public hearing. And lastly, T, from section 160222, construction details to allow the proposed CB2, catch basin 2, to be constructed with a 1-foot sump where normally 3 feet is required and a 2-foot diameter structure where normally 4 is required.
Okay, so we'll modify that request for a motion and a second for our 9.2 will now be from A through T. Does that change anybody's motion or a second? Nope. Did we get a motion in a second?
We did.
We did. We got a motion in a
Would you
second.
like to amend the
Well,
motion?
a motion,
Yeah, so I will
amend the
amend my
motion
motion
to
to go to
include
T.
R, S, and T. And the second is, amended as well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and that moves us on to 9.4, which is to grant architectural design review approval for the construction of a 17,600 square foot building addition, relocated squash courts and other site improvements at tax map 724Z lot 110A, addressed as 80 Dunbarton Road, and tax map 811Z lot 1A, addressed as 117 Dunbarton Road, as submitted. Would someone like to make a motion to grant architectural design review approval? We've got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 9.5 is to grant conditional use permit approval for section 2843D, conditional use permits required for certain disturbances of wetland buffers in the zoning and ordinance. Allow disturbances of wetland buffers in conjunction with the construction of the 17,000 square foot building addition and associated improvements. Would someone like to make a motion to grant conditional use permit approval as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 9.6 is to grant major site plan approval for the construction of a 17,600 square foot building addition and associated site improvements at, and I'm not going to read it again, same tax lot and map as it was before. Precedent conditions 1 through 5 and subsequent conditions
1 through 16.
1 through 16. Would someone like to make a motion to grant major site plan approval as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and I believe we are all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay.
Racquetball is easier.
What's that?
Racquetball is easier than squash.
It's not as posh, though. All right, let's move on in our agenda to item 9E, if we could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Richard D. Bartlett Associates LLC on behalf of the state of New Hampshire, 2 Granite Place LLC and Foxfire Property Management LLC, requesting approval for a minor subdivision application for a lot line adjustment and re-subdivision of tax map 583Z, lots 63, 64, addressed as 1 Granite Place, tax map 583Z, lot 63-1, and tax map 651Z, lot 68, in the institutional, single-family residential, and open space districts.
All right, let's get a quick staff update on this, if we could.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This project essentially is a re-subdivision of 4 existing lots at the former Lincoln Financial Campus. The newly configured 4 resulting lots would be as follows. 2 lots would be intended to be used for single-family residential use, those consisting of 10.5 and 0.62 acres. Those lots would be accessed from Little Pond Road and Pennacook Street respectively. A newly configured 11.61 acre lot containing the north office building, which will be sold to the state of New Hampshire and merged with the 6.41 acre lot that the state purchased in 2024. And then finally, a new 153.09 acre lot, which the applicant is intended to convey to the city, of which approximately 134.89 acres would be subject to either a conservation easement or similar deed restriction, and the remaining 18.2 acres intended to be available for future economic development and tax base expansion. The staff reports you have taken into consideration the expected resulting ownership of these 4 parcels, but also understands that the agreement between the applicant and the city council is being finalized. As a result, the proposed conditions of approval have been tailored in such a way that they could apply to either the city or another entity being the ultimate owner of the 153 acre lot. Staff is recommending the application be determined as complete and conditional approval of minor subdivision per the recommendations in the staff memo.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, so staff has found the application complete, not a development of regional impact. Would someone like to make a motion to find the application complete and open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Public hearing is open. Welcome to the table. If you could state your names for the record.
Dan Mullen from Richard Bartlett and Associates.
Steve Dupree, the owner.
Welcome back. Tell us a little bit about this.
Simplified, long story short, bought the whole Chubb campus rented it as office space for a while. The state, in order to build a garage, needed to move the Department of Justice. They acquired the south building, 2 Granite Place, in 24?
Yes.
24, with a very small piece of land. The state of New Hampshire Judicial Branch is leasing the top half, the top 2 floors of 1 Granite, the north building near the cemetery. They had an option to buy it. The legislature put through an appropriation in the budget. It used to be contingent on the sale of Laconia State School. No longer. They have an appropriation to buy the building. They served us notice. They intended to exercise the option. They have us doing some construction work in there, the project that never ends. So we're going to sell that to them in March or April. Those of you who've been here a while remember that when I bought the campus and sold part of it to the state of New Hampshire, I said I would use my best effort to make sure we develop tax base to offset the loss of tax dollars. This land has been appraised at a value of about $2.7 million. To be very honest, the real developable value is right out here in the front. So my plan was either to sell it to somebody who's going to tax it or donate it to somebody. In discussions with the city said they would like to control the interest there, so we have an agreement that we're working on. We will donate this to the city with a condition that it be turned into tax base, so that Steve Dupree kept his word, created tax base there. And I don't have to do the work, and I don't have to build apartments, so life is good. In order to get that density, we have to include all this backland, 150 acres, because some of it's usable, even though it'll be used just for density calculations, and when it eventually is developed, I'm sure the development will be housed right here. There's an existing little lot right there. There's an access point there, which would be a nice way to access the trails. They're about, I would say, about 2 miles of trails out there that are used pretty actively by bikers and hikers out there. That isn't the view that you get at Swope Park, but it's a gorgeous piece of land, and it's a big piece of land that would be great for mountain bike park and hiking. Only 2 folks that I'm aware of currently that are homeless up there, and I gave permission for one to camp there, the Hermit of Rattlesnake Hill, as I call him. And then I've carved out there was access, and we get variances to create a 10.5-acre single lot there. So basically, this is a minor, even though it's a big piece of land, subdivision to be in a position to separate out the state piece, so they'll own both halves of the campus, their parking lots and the way in, to give to the city all of this land, but put a restriction back here that this is only used, probably a deed restriction instead of an easement, I think is the city's preference, so that it'd be recreation land. And I think it's one of the largest donations of land for the city, and I think it'll be a great resource going forward. It's a good use for the land. I actually had the opportunity to buy a couple of houses, and you could do a cluster development in here, and I guess there's a need for more housing, but I don't think that's the appropriate place for it. So that's it in a nutshell. The state of New Hampshire would very much like me to donate it to them. I'd rather donate it to Concord because we're going to get some good things done here. My only goal is I need to do it, and I want to do it this year. So most of the waivers are in place. There are a couple other waivers that I think would be appropriate that will help move us along. But that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Questions from the board? No? Any member of the audience have any questions or concerns about this application? Oh, yep, come on up. I've got to step back just for a sec. Hi.
Hello.
If you could state your name for the record.
Tori Ives.
Great, Tori.
So I'm a resident on Rumford Street. So I'm actually right across the street from the proposed property that would be donated to the city. So I guess our primary concern is a little more future forward than I was expecting to have discussed at this meeting. But our concern would be regarding what kind of development we would be expected to see in that property, as right now we feel that it would definitely affect future property values, as right now it's nice woods and lawn, as well as busyness on the street. The street is already incredibly busy with very often vehicles speeding down the road at high speeds. So that would just be our concern, is making sure that that's taken into consideration, that that's a residential area, that we don't want to see our property values appreciate due to expected developments.
Okay. And again, I can't speak to what what's gonna go in there, because nobody
Sure.
has any idea, but.
And I
you're-
didn't
you're on
realize
the-
that it was gonna be so far, like, more of a future thing,
Yep.
so we'll keep that in mind.
You're on the record, though, and.
Yeah.
Any
You'll be-
future development of that property would have to come back before the board.
You'll be noticed as a
Right.
butter, so,
Right. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we
Understood.
great,
voiced our opinion on that. If you
great, well, thank you.
Problem?
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir, come on up. And thank you for signing in, Tori.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Just...
Hi, if you could
Hi.
state your name for the record?
Good afternoon, or evening, I guess it is. My name's Martin Peroso. I am one of the larger abutters of all of this property here. I own the property at 72 Pennacook Street, which is the
On the hill, right?
sharp curve,
Yeah,
not
right
at
on
the
the
top,
corner, yep.
partway up. And all the way around the 5 properties that are across from the reservoir and past that.
Oh.
So I adjoin everything that you can see along there that's purple. And I think this is a great thing to do. Steve Dupree was talking to me about this a month ago when he was going for a subdivision of the 10-acre piece, and I do think he's a man of his word. He's been here a lot more times than I have, and he's done a lot of things that he said he was going to do, and I think that I expected something to happen down in the bottom half with development, partly because we have such a shortage of housing, and that fits right in with neighborhoods of that stuff. I have no idea how big the development will be, whether it'll be cluster housing or whatever it'll be, and that's for the future, I guess, because this doesn't address that part. But I think that this enormous piece of 153 acres or so, which has been wilderness for eons, since they clear-cut the place, I don't know, 1820 or something, it's been a great place to go hiking and all kinds of things in there. And I think this would be an unbelievable use of this property in comparison to putting developments in there like there's been further up in both sides of Little Pond Road. So I'm all for it. I just want to, not sure my opinion has a lot of value here.
It sure does, yeah.
But, I just want to
appreciate
tell you, as an abutter, I think this is the best use of it. Way better than the Langley Parkway, which I just had to give a little slap on that.
There you go.
So thank you very much. Is there any
Okay.
questions anyone has?
Any questions for Mr. Perso? Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to weigh in? If not, we'll have you guys come on back up.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, Dina.
Mr. Dupree, did you say that you purchased some of the homes that are on Little Pond Road? Did you? No, okay, all right, sorry, I misunderstood.
The 2 yellow parcels that are involved here would become single-family resident. They're currently re-subdivided as part of this project to end up with those lots being developable for single-family use.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions, concerns? Steve?
Just a couple on the conditions precedent. I just had on the staff report, page 10, items I, J, and K, where we have to get, obviously, the language of the easement approved. Right now, it says it's approved by the clerk of the planning board, city solicitor, and city engineer as to form and content. I would appreciate it if we could make that the city manager or their designee, so that in-house you folks coordinate that, and I just have one point of contact, and I don't have to be responsible for who's doing that.
Okay, thought, yes?
I know all of you will weigh in. We'd like that to be in the huddle, not out on the line of scrimmage.
Typically how this will be is all of that is managed through the planning division, and the planning division disseminates, sends that where it needs to go for the proper reviews.
Good, because we have, the December 31st deadline is a hard deadline. If we have some problem, and I'm at December 31st, the state will, I cannot be January 1st, so I know we're all on the same team on that one. And then, it's not the end of the world.
So just so we're clear, no language needs to change.
No language needs to change, as long as I understand you folks will quarterback it. I don't have to worry about going between departments to see if everybody's happy. All right,
Send it to
good.
me, we'll get it taken care of.
Gail, can't beat that, fabulous. And then, the question on the monuments. This is a huge piece of land. That's a Herculean effort. You're gonna own it, the city's going to own it. It would be great if we didn't have to go to the effort. It's a pretty sizable donation. I'd rather not have to spend time and money between now and December 31st trying to get this monumented. We can blaze it or something. That's pretty easy to do, I think, relatively.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Alec, and I'm going to defer to Matt as well, but we do allow an opportunity to do a financial guarantee in lieu of.
I'd have to look a little bit more. This is, and are you referencing precedent condition 5?
4
and 5?
Yes. I mean, like, 5 allows for blazing, on the recommendation of the Conservation Commission. I haven't got time to go back to them. I mean,
If it's not being done as an easement, though, that probably won't end up applying if we're doing it through a deed restriction.
bingo. It'll be a deed restriction.
And do you have an issue with precedent condition 4, where the monuments will be set?
Yeah, I mean, how big a challenge is that? We've got,
The residential lots
Easy.
wouldn't be easy. Yeah. The only, there's quite a few along the access way coming in.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple where the conservation easement would cut across there, but if that's only going to be a deed restriction, then
So it sounds like Dan can do it.
Sounds like, I mean, this is a typical precedent condition, so I'm a little hesitant to recommend approving that on the spot, and I'm also not entirely sure what the registry requirements are.
Yeah,
Those need to be in place prior to the
I mean, the
requirements.
residential lots are easy to do. I'm just worried about having the time to go out. That's a big parcel of land. It's a long way to go. It's a lot of stones to get out there.
Walsh,
most of the large parcel is already monumented.
You think
anyway.
most of it is? So,
I can give you a count later on or something.
can you get this done, is the question.
Can get it done, but it's gonna take a little while, but.
My question was going to be, what's your time frame for conveying the blue lot to the state?
It's gonna be between March 1st and April 1st.
Of 2026?
Oh, yeah. Not April 2nd. Been there, done
Part of
that.
April 1st would be ideal.
Yes. 30th of March is the goal.
so you think of pushing it off?
Well, yeah, I was going to float the idea of if it was conducive to say, put up, I think this, assuming the city, we'll know from the city council on December 8th if we're going forward with this transaction.
Yeah.
But and I don't want to speak about what the council may or may not do, but Councilor Todd can do that if he wants to, if he wishes to. Not to put you on the spot.
I'm going to guess no, just not even looking
I
at it.
hope it isn't a tough call. Hi, we're giving you
turned around.
$7.7 million piece of land
You know,
for free.
Because I think the regs talk about putting a surety up, and I was going to say, if it's a challenge to get it done between tonight and December 31st.
We'll use our best efforts. Let's see what we can do. We can get you some corners, I
We don't
think.
need anything in the back.
We don't need anything in the back.
Right here, this front half, and
And the lots.
residential lots.
So the rest of them have enough monuments out?
Just okay.
All right, easy peasy. But I just didn't want to be December 25th and him out there,
Certainly.
you know?
So again, for the record, Alex, we making changes to 4 or 5?
Sounds like we
We're
don't
good.
need to make a
We're
change.
good.
Okay,
All right,
precedent
now that we
condition.
understand how that goes.
Before you move on, I do have a few modifications, or when we get there.
No, let's hit them now.
Relating to, the applicant has requested a waiver to section 1503 tabulations to not provide the buildable area and contiguous area for each lot shown on the plat. So staff's recommending approval of that waiver so that we would add that in as M. I'll read it again when we get there. Also, that section 1208.12 is to not provide abutting wells and septic systems. We also have section 1503.1, abutting property. We want to include that as part of that section. That regulation requires the same thing. We want to add that, a clarification. That's it. And that will strike 2 of the precedent conditions.
Okay.
I can help when
Help
I
when
have
you
all the
get- when you
verbiage
get to that.
prepared when we get there.
And what about 9.3 is to deny the waiver request for the
Test pits.
test pits?
The applicant plans to conform with that, so we can move through, deny it, and everything will be satisfied accordingly.
Okay.
And that is essentially just to provide the soil test pits.
Yes.
To prove that the lots can have a septic.
Have a septic system. Yep. Good.
Good.
Okay. All right, so let's, again, using the information that we heard here tonight and the information that's in packet as their findings
Close
of
the hearing.
fact. We'll close the public hearing. Don't speak anymore. So we'll close the public hearing. Thank you for your testimony, everyone. And again, using the findings of fact, the information that we heard here tonight, as well as the information that's in your reports, we'll base all our findings on that. 9.2, Alec can help me out here, so we'll grant the waiver requests below, and those are outlined in A through M now?
Yep.
Okay.
A through, well, it's right now it's A through L, right?
Yes.
Yep. So, and we will add M.
Yep.
Section 1503 tabulations to not tabulate and provide the total area of contiguous for each lot and show on the final plat. I would also recommend the board amend F to include section 1503.1, abutting property, to not provide the location of existing wells and subsurface waste disposal systems on abutting property.
Okay.
And I would recommend modifying H. There was a typo, and we want H to read section 1208.17.
Not 7.
Not 7.
Okay.
That
Okay.
is it for waivers.
All right, with those modifications, would someone like to make a motion to grant the waiver requests as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 9.3 hasn't changed. To
That
deny
was
the
to be
waiver
the
request?
deny, correct.
Okay, deny the waiver request outlined in A, which is section 1503.12 septic systems. Someone like to make a motion to deny that waiver request? I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second. We got a second. And any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 9.4. I'll give you a sec, Alec, but grant minor subdivision approval for the lot line adjustment and 4-lot subdivision of tax map 583Z, lot 63 and 64, tax map 583Z, lot 63-1, and tax map 651Z, lot 68, located at Granite Place in the single-family residential RS open space residential district. Wow. Would someone like to make, then those are, in the minor subdivision has precedent conditions outlined in 1 through
6, but we're taking
6, but we're changing that. How are we changing that?
Staff would recommend that precedent condition 1C, instead of 12087, read 15027 to appropriately match
17.
the lot numbers requirement.
Yep.
Strike F, strike 1F and strike 1G, as those are approved waivers.
Approving waivers, yep.
And
That should be it.
that is
That's
it.
right?
And so that creates it precedent conditions 1A through K.
Still
going.
2K, right?
Thought you were done.
And
Sorry.
And then subsequent conditions 1 through 3.
And then subsequent conditions 1 through 3. So.
I'll
Matt,
make that motion.
you make that motion
Now that
to approve
Alex
that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
said. Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries, and we are good. Thank you. Good luck. Okay. So moving on. And again, 9F is off the agenda for tonight, so move us on to item 10A, other business. Review of proposed master plan requests for proposals, along with the report from the Deputy City Manager of Development. We'll welcome to the table Deputy City Manager of Development, Mr. Walsh.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So at your October meeting, I said we were working on the draft request for proposals for consulting services for the master plan. The board expressed an interest in looking at what that scope of work is. So we provided that to you with a cover memo. Essentially what I was hoping to garner from the board was the master plan is the board's process. It's a purview of the planning board. And this is the first time that the city is doing a comprehensive master plan in 17 years. The last one was adopted in 2008, so it's been a long time. And recognizing that Concord is a large community, and I think there are several boards and commissions. I think I had a count of 19 that are probably going to be involved in the process, and I think the community is going to want to be very engaged. It's wise to check in with the board to see how we think we're going to move forward before we start going out to engage a consultant. And there are two ways of doing a master plan. There are consultant services RFP. The first way is, hey, we're going to have these chapters. We're not going to tell you what's in the chapters, and we also look to you, the consultant, to come up with a public participation plan. And there's all sorts of different ideas of how that could be done. The other way to do it is to be a little more prescriptive, so the consultants understand what our intentions are for moving forward, which might make the process a little more efficient and transparent for those that are proposing to be involved in the project. So we've taken the approach of trying to be a little more prescriptive, so that way everybody understands what our intentions are. I anticipate that consultants will want to propose some tweaks or some alternatives or things to think about, but we at least wanted to give them a good foundation for where we think we were going to go. So what I was hoping for, I guess, to give a little bit of an overview. So what's before you and in the report, it talks about the intended approach here, which is really, calling this the 2050 master plan. It talks about updating, kind of building upon plans and studies that were completed as part of the 2008 master plan process, and they're listed there on page 2 of 3. Talking about what the public participation plan for the project would be, which I'll just walk through here quickly. First is Mayor Champlin and the council have appropriated funds to have a citywide visioning session, or 2 of those sessions with New Hampshire Listens, and I provided you with a report and resolution for that, so that's going to be baked into the process. Recognizing that Concord is a community with really 6 primary neighborhoods: Pennacook, West Concord, downtown, and the West End, the South End, the Heights, and East Concord. This scope of work calls for doing individual neighborhood or village forums to get feedback at the neighborhood level. Beyond that, there will be a community survey. We're talking about, this will be a comprehensive survey that will look at many of the major topics that people are going to be interested in: housing, transportation, parks and recreation, land use, economic development, things of that nature. We're talking about translating the RFP into multiple languages, because there are multiple languages. Translating the survey into multiple languages that are listed there. Those are the primary languages that we understand are spoken in the community, in consultation with the library and the city's Human Services Department. The survey would be both digital and paper, to try and make it as inclusive as possible. Having subject matter focus groups. The 3 that are suggested are housing, economic development, and New Americans. The New Americans group is really intended to try and help include that population, which is diverse, in the process. That's really what the intention is there. Given the focus in the community on housing and economic development, the goal there is to bring stakeholders in from housing, all aspects of housing, all the way from the unhoused to market rate housing, affordable housing, developers of all sorts, to try and have a increased attention on housing, to come up with housing policy for the next 15 or 20 years to guide us forward as we look at land use regulations. And then economic development as well, as we update our 2005 economic development plan as part of this process, really having a complement of stakeholders from the business community working with us, in addition to the Economic Development Advisory Committee, which is a standing committee of the city council of the city. There'll be a project website. There will be multiple social media platforms. I think there will be some tweaks to that. I think the project website will actually be hosted by the city, and in talks with the city's public information officer, I think there will be probably 3 primary social media feeds, which I think will be Facebook and Instagram and likely Twitter or X. If you flip the page, you can see that we're talking about having 14 individual chapters, which are listed there on the bottom of page 2 and then on the page 3. And really probably doing those chapters, they'll be worked on simultaneously, but I think you'll see them kind of land in a phased fashion. And what I've got here is really starting off with what I keep calling the more data-related chapters at the beginning of the process, which would be, vision, population, housing, utilities, community facilities, parks and recreation. Building on that would be more of the resource chapters, which would be historic and cultural resources, natural resources and open space, as well as energy and sustainability. Building on that, I think we'll then probably move to economic development, transportation, and land use, because those 3 chapters really require what comes before them to be able to have good policy. And at the very end, I think you'll see that there will be a final phase of chapters, which would be, ironically, the introduction chapter as well as the implementation chapter for the plan. There's a schedule that's out. There's a process in here about the boards and commissions. I think the planning board will need to give some thought, and we've got a little bit of time. You don't have to figure it out tonight, or maybe even December if you decide you want to continue the conversation in December. But there are some chapters where I think the board is going to rely heavily on this. I think the board's going to rely, unless you want to do something differently, I envision that the board would rely heavily on your subject matter experts. So, for example, I can see the board working extensively with like the Recreation Parks Advisory Committee on the Parks and Recreation chapter, and maybe the board appoints 1 or 2 board members to work with RPAC on that, along with city staff and the consultant. I can see a similar model for the Natural Resources and Open Space chapter. It would be the Conservation Commission, probably with a couple members from the board and staff and the consultant. I can see the same thing for Historical Resources chapter. I think the Heritage Commission would probably take the lead with some, involvement from board members. I think there's some other I can see the same scenario also for the Economic Development chapter, which is, EDAC, the Economic Development Advisory Committee would probably take the lead. There are other chapters like
it's almost all of them are
so transportation. Transportation is a little more complicated because I think in some cases I suggested you might want to think of a steering committee, whereby transportation is a good example. So I think you're going to have the Transportation Policy Advisory Committee, which has subcommittees of it, by the way, that deal with other issues. There's a Traffic Operations Committee at the city staff level. I foresee that the airport will be part of this chapter, so the Airport Advisory Committee will probably want to be involved. Councilor Todd, I apologize in advance, but I think the Parking Committee will probably be part of the Transportation chapter because how we use our streets is going to be is the discussion, not the only discussion in the Transportation chapter, but a big one. And if we're starting with this, hey, how do we use our streets? It's going to feed into what we do with land use. Parking is going to be part of that. And there's a couple others that I've probably missed there in the list. So, in some of these cases, it might make sense for the board to say, yep, we want a steering committee of so many representatives from these individual groups. But I can also foresee the board telling the staff and the consultant, we still want you to go and meet with those individual bodies as a group to make sure all the voices are heard. There's a schedule that's laid out in the RFP here on page 66 of it, which I can pull up here quickly. If you just give me a second. I'm all the way through there. Actually, yeah, Tim, if you can pull it up on the screen, that'd be great. Thank you.
Click the bottom, it will shoot across to the bottom.
Yeah. Where are we here?
That.
Look at that, huh? 66.
So smart.
February 26th, huh? Late February 26th.
Tim, if you could.
I tried typing it in.
It's not going to do it. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Oh. So this is obviously subject to change. But this was the master schedule that we were talking about. So, if the board decides they're comfortable with the RFP tonight, we would get it out on the street in early December. It's not on here. We were looking to get proposals back from consultants in mid-January, and we would like to have a consultant on board by the end of February. We would go into a data collection period. So before we do public participation, we're envisioning this as a two-way street to learn. There's an opportunity to educate the community here about their community, things that they don't know about. Here's the condition of your utilities. Here's some information about your transportation system. Here's your economic base. Here's what your housing stock is. Here's what population actually is and what it might be. And so as we go through the public participation process, we want to have the opportunity to inform the community so they can give us good feedback that's based on information. So there's a processing here where we envision the consultant team will be pulling together some housing and population and economic data as well as putting together some existing conditions plans that we can show people about this is what your community is today, so you can think about where you're going to go in the future. We would take a couple months to do that. We would probably in late May, finish that process in late May if the schedule held. We would launch the city's master plan website in May of 26. We would then move on with our public participation process. The survey would probably launch in mid-June of 26, concurrently with what we believe the visioning sessions would be. We're trying to do it in mid-June for a couple reasons. One, we're trying to get through the city council's budget process, which is a big staff lift. We're also trying to get something done before people disappear for the summer for the holidays. So we really want to try and get something done in mid-June-ish before, you know, graduation season and the 4th of July and people disappear and come back at Labor Day. We would probably start our stakeholder groups during the summer if we can get those groups organized and if people are around, and that would continue probably throughout the fall. There would be social media updates and websites continuously. Task number 4, because again, there's at least 19 boards and commissions that we think are going to be involved. Once we come back from the summer, we would have a kickoff meeting with all those boards and commissions in one room. We've got to find a venue that's big enough, and it will be probably the most epic public notice that we've ever had for legal purposes. To have everybody in the room and say, okay, here's what we've heard from your community feedback. It's on you now to start putting together the chapters. And here's the consulting team. And so again, educating the boards and commissions, taking questions, laying out how we're going to move forward, try to everybody start on that same page. And then we would move into actually developing those individual chapters, which would really take the better part of a year there. You see, we'd start some of that before we get the boards together because we can get some of this existing conditions stuff done, but it would be really starting in September. We go through June of 27. We present the final draft plan to the board in July of 27. The board may want to make revisions. We're going to keep you well informed as we go along here, so we're not just going to give you the whole thing like you've never seen it before. As chapters get done, we'll probably give them to you so you don't get inundated with 14 chapters that you have to read at once. But there might be some revisions or questions or things that the board might want to think about. So we've allotted some time there, July of 27 through November. It'd be really nice to have the board have a public hearing in December of 27, and the final document gets published in January of 28, and we're done. So that's the layout that's there. But again, this is, you know, staff suggestion. It's the board's process. If there's things in there that you want to tweak or you think you want to change, please tell me that. We're happy to work with you on it. I guess I'll stop there.
Okay. Well, thank you. It's a hell of a long document. I know that. and again, I guess it needs to be a long document. I think there's anything and everything that could be put in is we put it in to figure out, or you put it in to figure out, kind of where we're going from there.
Yeah, my overarching concern of all this is the city council's appropriated a healthy budget for this project. Mm-hmm. I want to make it clear to the consultant community what our expectations are. I don't want to get stuck in a position where an RFP is too vague and we end up arguing with a consultant going, hey, I did what you asked me to do, and we're going to say, no, you didn't. And not that that's ever happened before, but that's why it's done that way. It's also to try and make sure that everybody knows which direction we're going.
So my original thought process was that we get our first peek at it with the posting of it here. We can take a look at it, defer it out to the December meeting, looking for public feedback on the RFP process. I've heard, and I know I was talking to Councilor Todd on my walk in, I know he's been hearing from people. I've heard from several people, I want to make sure that the RFP is perfect, and I want to make sure this, and I haven't had a chance to read it, and I want to weigh in, and are you going to have public testimony? So my original thought was we make sure that it's on for public hearing, put it out there for public testimony. And I'm rethinking that after spending a little time reading through the document today and then hearing your conversation here tonight. I want this to be as open and inclusive as possible. I don't want it to be so open and inclusive that we just keep hashing things through. The RFP process, if I'm not mistaken, even if things are missed, what I don't want to have happen is we get the RFP out and someone says, well, how come you didn't do this, or how come you didn't think of this, or how come you didn't think of that? And I'm sure there's going to be some of those in there.
And those
But
are things that
if we
typically.
didn't think about those aren't going to preclude them from being put into the final plan, right? I mean, if we forgo public testimony, or and I want to say forgo, but if we post the RFP without really putting it out there and getting public testimony, do we still have, a second bite at the apple, even if the RFP is out there?
Absolutely. I'll defer to Matt, but having done, land use planning for close to 30 years in New Hampshire and been involved with 4 different master plans in 3 different communities, the RFP it's the framework. It's not the plan itself. The community and the consultant and the public have the opportunity and should modify the process as you go forward to tailor the information and what's done to the community and what the needs and desires are that are expressed through those public processes. So I don't think that the RFP itself is the avenue for that. It's the plan, it's the public participation in the plan where that takes place.
Matt?
I concur with Tim. There's a certain amount of a flexibility that we're going to have to, it's got to be the right touch. There has to be enough detail in the RFP so the consultant knows what the expectations are and where we're going. There has to be enough flexibility there will be things that will come up during this process with our community, which will be wonderful, that none of us around the table have thought about. And somebody's going to bring up something's going to come up at a visioning session, a neighborhood session, a citywide session, the survey, and we'll say, we really need to bore into that. And the consultant, if they're a good consultant, will probably agree. And so I think there is a certain amount of flexibility that will be allowed for as we go forward. The other part of all this is there might have to be a negotiation with our consulting or team of consultants. It's not going to be one consultant. It's going to be a lead consultant with a bunch of sub-consultants. And there might be a negotiation. So if there's too much effort and time spent on the RFP, some of those things might get jettisoned as we work through with a consultant that comes in and says, hey, I'm happy to do that, but you got to double your budget. Or that's an extreme example.
Yeah.
So, again, it's up to the board. We're flexible. Typically, RFPs are done at the staff level, so it's unusual that that a board's involved in this anyway, which is okay. It's your process. We want to make sure you're comfortable with it, and you want to make sure that we're on the same page with you.
Right.
If the schedule has to be adjusted, then the schedule's adjusted. I leave it to the board. You have no obligation to have a public hearing on an RFP. If you want to, that's the board's prerogative. And I guess with that, I'll let you talk among yourselves.
What do we think? Any thoughts, concerns, questions, Councilor Todd?
Thanks. I'll provide some feedback, which I think is, I like the schedule. I think that's really very, very well done. As best we can predict now, as you say, right? We don't know. But it's great to have at least some kind of a framework to work toward or work with. I also, I like the idea of, I'll just speak for myself because I don't know how other board members feel, but I like the concept perhaps of having some of us actually working with some of those key groups and committees, and just kind of being there to observe and listen, even if we're not going to heavily participate, but we'll be there to kind of understand what the concepts are that are talked about. So I think that is also a very good idea. Mr. Walsh and I had an informal conversation recently about this, and I described the current master plan as providing good guidance, but that it seems to read a little bit more like a collection of short stories than a novel. And sure enough, so I got some comments already, and someone said the by-chapter organizing of the plan gives all these interrelated topics their due, but can undermine the interconnectedness and perhaps set up silos or competition. So are you comfortable with the way, and I know Mr. Thompson just made comments, that's just one example. Are you comfortable with the way that the RFP is written so that we will be able to impose additional requirements about the connectivity and the kind of connecting the dots concept of the master plan, despite the framework that you've set out for them?
Our intention is, yes, our intention is to make sure, we want the chapters to weave together to row the boat in the same direction. Are there going to be some cases where there might have to be some compromises made, or the board may have to decide what policy is going to be. And that's going to be part of the process. Our goal is not to have everything in silos. Our goal is to provide data that will lead into these chapters that really have a lot to talk about it. Like, you can't have a really good land use chapter unless you understand what your population projection is going to be, what your utility issues are, what your transportation issues are, what your housing issues are, where the world's going with housing from a policy perspective, what your existing goals are for land use, the urban growth boundary. Does the boundary stay as it's set now? Are we changing it? And then how do you make sure that that's all weaved back, that, the land use chapter is talking about doing this for certain zoning changes. Well, what does that do to your population chapter? So I think there's going to be a certain amount of building these chapters, but then a loop back going, oh, wait, when we put all this together, we did this, so we want to revisit something. But our goal is not to have it in silos. It's to have everything move towards a well thought out, comprehensive policy that moves the city in the same direction.
But aside from the urban growth boundaries and the downtown and the Manchester Street and the Loudon Road piece of it, you look at, to Councilor Todd's point of the silos, what's good for Pennacook? Is that good for the South End? Is it good for East Concord? Is it good for the Heights? And there is distinctive neighborhoods, but they're really the same. I mean, the functionality should be the same, right? I mean, you're talking about still, CAT transportation and utilities and all the, parks and recs and all, whatever happens, it doesn't matter what silo it's in. It needs to kind of permeate through all the individual groups.
Yeah, I think the overarching vision will permeate through everything, which I think are going to be very, I don't want to call them mom and apple pie, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But every neighborhood's going to have its own issues. I expect Pennacook will probably want to have a good conversation about what happens at the Rivco site, which is baked into this RFP. I'm sure there'll be good discussion about what happens out at the Exit 17 area and what may be coming out there in the future. I think in the South End, there's going to be a lot of conversation about, for example, everyone's going to probably be focused on McKee Square down there. I think there will be some other conversations about what happens with some of the land use once you get out of some of the established neighborhoods in the South End. I could see that similar conversations in East Concord. On the Heights, I imagine there'll be lots of interesting discussion there. There's been some recent press on the Steeplegate Mall, which I won't comment on, but depending on what the status of the mall is as we get into public participation in these chapters, I can see the folks on the Heights really wanting to have a robust conversation about the mall.
Yep.
I can see them also wanting to talk about park and recreational land up there, because the major facility is Keach, and there's been some discussion about doing other facilities up there as the neighborhood grows. So.
Yeah. Tim?
Getting back to Councilor Todd's comment about integration of chapters, and that's one of the things I think we have an advantage with the way we're proposing to fund and structure this plan. My first master plan I did as a professional planner was back with the city of Rochester back in the late 1990s, and that was funded on a chapter-by-chapter basis. So what happens in that situation is you're so focused on that one chapter that when you combine all the chapters together, they don't connect and they don't have that comprehensive feel to it. So I think one of the advantages of the way we've approached this is looking at it from the comprehensive 30,000-foot view to make sure that we're making sure all these chapters work together so we don't have that siloed effect as we move forward.
Right. Yeah, I guess if I could, because I think that's probably an overarching concern, and I guess Berlin, New Hampshire's master plan is about 3 years old, and different community, I recognize that, but they have guiding principles and practices and strategies and actions. So I guess what you're saying is that we could develop a similar kind of approach, and we don't have to put that in the RFP, but we can certainly say, well, this is what we would like to have as our, and of course last time around, as we know, it was the 2020 vision report. There was a lot of that was kind of copied and pasted into the master plan, and that also served, I think the intent was to have that serve as the kind of connectivity piece where you had the concept of a city of villages, right? So that may change. There may people we don't know yet, right? We'll find out. But whatever it is, we can have that cohesiveness still imposed onto the final product.
So are we comfortable with the RFP as it sits, or I mean, again, to Matt's point, I mean, the RFP process just is kind of the kickoff piece of it.
Yeah.
Do we really need to have public testimony? And again, my thought was, yes, we do need to do it because we want to hear from people, but by the same token, we're going to give them enough chance on the downslope here as we move past and get it out into people's hands where they can say, hey, you didn't remember this and you didn't talk about this, and how come we're not addressing solar? How come we're not addressing wind? How come we're not addressing electrical charging? And all the things that we know we're going to hear are going to be in there, but we're going to miss something. Somebody's going to have some comment that's going to strike a chord, and we're going to be able to put it in. But I think we can put it in. So whether it's green space folks or whether it's the whoever we're hearing from, I know that I just don't want to squelch anybody's opinions, but I don't know that they're going to change the RFP process at all either.
Yes, yeah,
please.
thank you. That's correct. So another comment that I received is, how do we encourage the creation of a master plan that has energy and excitement to it, to avoid a redo of the current plan, which was described as like a boring read.
Yeah.
So, so that's I think I think what some folks that I've heard from so far are talking about. So they're looking at things like making sure that we have elements like the aging population of New Hampshire, the housing crisis, the explosion of AI, climate change, electrification of transport or autonomous transport, right?
Yep.
So these are the things. These are the comments that I've been getting. Now, I think those are very specific comments.
Absolutely.
But again, I think that what we're hearing so far, though, is that we are not precluded from touching on any of these, and in fact, these are the kinds of things that folks will bring up during the outreach process.
And again, so I think you look at all these things and say, okay, that belongs in chapter this, that belongs in chapter this, that belongs over here, and start filling in those chapters with that type of information. Because I'm hearing the same types of things, but it doesn't. It's almost like it's almost like the RFP's too much detail. Do we want to just say these are the chapters that we want to address, and we'll go from there? And to Matt's point, you go one way or the other. We want to give them the detail to be able to then kind of cohesively form those chapters and come up with, then be able to come and say, okay, here's how this is going to work. And like I said, I had a conversation with someone on the green space side of it. It might bend over into the other area. The transportation piece of it might bend over and say, well, why aren't we putting these areas in and putting some green space into these transportation corridors or things like that. So again, I want to make sure we're open and transparent, but by the same token, I don't think if we had 10 people here giving testimony, it's going to change the RFP at all. It would be my guess.
I think some of the concern. Well, I think that what's happened is that because there have been some specifics gotten into in the RFP, that then I think some readers are looking at that as, well, wait a minute, you left this out.
Yeah.
Or what about that?
Right.
So, for example, stakeholders, and I guess the comment that I received was that business and property owners and those who work in Concord but don't live here weren't specified, and the county and the state wasn't specified. And so, but that, again, that does not preclude us from
getting that feedback from them.
So, in essence, what we're trying to tell the public, I think, you've read the RFP. First of all, good for you, right? Because that's. But if you have, then keep in mind that this is sort of more of a sampling of data that we're giving general guidance on, but it's not a full view of every single point and every.
To that point, I think it's what I didn't want to have happen is, well, that wasn't an RFP, so we're not going to address that. And that's, I think we heard loud and clear that that's not the case. That we can address anything that comes up, just a matter of plugging it into where it's going to belong on the process. And the state piece of it, I guess, is obviously an important one because they have a major piece of the puzzle here, and what are you going to do with this property? How is it affecting this and that? So I think that's all valuable information.
I did, if I may, I did get one comment. I'm not sure what category this would fall in, but someone suggested that there is an additional small area master plan that does not appear on page 12 of the RFP, but might have some relevant components, and that's the South Concord Redevelopment Area Study from 1997. So that might, I don't know if that's something that, again, you felt that you potentially left out, or you thought maybe that doesn't have value, or.
So the 1997 it's a South End rail yard study, and in my mind, that got updated and replaced by, there is, in the 2030 master plan, there is a concept plan. There's a lot of discussion about the South End Rail Yard and going for a mixed-use neighborhood there with a variety of uses. And there's a plan in the chat, there's a graphic that's included that was prepared by Dewan Associates that shows what that could look like. And so I was working with that as the latest thinking for what that might be, which is different than the 1997 plan, which was more less mixed use and more, I think, industrial, if my memory serves. So, which I think we're going to sit with the community and say, okay, we have this South End area. It's a hodgepodge of uses right now. It really is. And the question is going to be, which way do you want to go? So the development that's occurred there over the last 17 years has been residential. You have the South End, you have the rail yard project that happened, you have the Evo gym that happened, but you still have other uses down there like Concord Trailways and a large warehouse that's owned by the Steenbeck family, and you also have like a hairdresser, and then you have all the small, I'll call them automotive uses that are affiliated with the Sandal family and Sandal Napa. And, you know, is what's the vision for that area going to be? Is it going to be one or the other? Is there a way to accommodate both and it becomes more of a flex zone, which might be appropriate considering I don't see some of those other uses changing anytime soon, and how to thread that needle. But that's the answer of why I left out the 97 plan.
I guess if your opinion is that there aren't any relevant components that remain in that plan other than those that were covered in the 2030, then
I have no problem giving it to the consultant. I think that the consultant's going to get a boatload of information. A boatload of information. And they're going to have to tape their eyes open so they can read. Yeah, but.
Right. So the only other piece with a general question is if we get into this and let's say, I'll just pick an example. Let's say folks that live in the North End say, hey, how come we're not listed in the RFP, but we still feel we're on our own separate neighborhood or community? Is there still an option to be able to add an additional area? So someone actually commented that in the current master plan, the West End neighborhood is actually broken down into Lower West End and Upper West End. But here it's put together with a downtown, so downtown/West End. So that's why I was kind of asking that question. Do we still have some flexibility on that as well, depending on how that might move forward, or should we augment that listing?
If you want to call out a specific one separately, I merged them together because there's residential in downtown, but not a ton of it, and there's a fair amount of residential that's in the West End as you go up the hill here behind City Hall. And are they a little bit different? Yeah. But are they interconnected? Yes, because a lot of those folks walk down the hill and vice versa. And so that's why it was done that way. I think also I'd have to look at the map that's in the 2030 master plan, which is slightly different than what was in the 2020 vision. If you want to separate them, that's fine. The other thing is I want to make sure that we have enough people show up at one of these that it makes sense. And if we do downtown by itself, if we define downtown as I don't know.
Main Street, State Street stores.
If you defined it by, Center Street to
Spring Street,
to the intersection with Water Street and somewhere between Green Street and Store Street, I don't. To me, that doesn't feel like there's enough critical mass there. So that's why we're just trying to merge some stuff together. And given that there's an interface between the downtown central business district and the neighborhood that's behind it, some people on the hill might be concerned about downtown creeping up the hill. And so there was some logic of saying, well, if we put these two groups together, maybe this might help when we talk about neighborhood character of, nope, we want a hard and fast line of downtown ends here and the West End starts here, and they're two different and they're separate. And we want the city regs to recognize that and how to carry it forward. So that's one of the reasons why putting them together, in my mind, made sense.
And there's that.
We will do whatever the board wants to do.
Is that plus the overlap with the interest groups and the citywide?
Yeah.
But won't it come out in discussion too if people think that their neighborhood, which hasn't been considered historically a neighborhood, should be considered, and that will come on the discussion anyway. over the year.
Yeah, I mean, you might, you know, we're working with the list of neighborhoods that we traditionally have had, which are listed, but, you know, ironically, 2020 Vision talked about trying to create maybe another village somewhere else, and through this process, people might say, well, you know, we're part of such and such area, but we're really distinct from them, and we want to, and we want to be called out separately.
So
I'm sorry, I was going to just follow up on your comment if I could quickly, because that's all I was really asking about is there flexibility, which I think was what you're trying to say. And as long as there is, then I don't think there's an issue as to what's in the RFP right now. We can.
And I think the other part on our end will be to try and make sure that we, our negotiations with the consultant about budget leaves a certain amount of money available to deal with things that are going to pop up along the way. So we have the resources to you know, if it requires a certain amount of extra effort, there are dollars available to deal with that extra effort.
Basically, there needs to be contingency like you do in an engineering estimate.
Any other project, yeah.
Matt?
So I just have a couple questions that you can briefly answer or tell me answer later. Role of the RPC. We're a dues pay member of the RPC. I go to these meetings every month.
We are, and maybe it's not clear enough in some of these chapters. There is a discussion about.
Just for clarification, the Regional Planning Commission?
Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, which I am an alumni of from a long time ago. I do intend on having. It is talked about in the RFP in different places about talking about understanding regional plans and how they feed into this. So they do need to be included. One of the things that I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Hicks, because many years ago there was a citywide transportation model that was built. So we could literally model what certain things would do to our transportation system if we made certain policy decisions. And one of the things I need to do before we issue the RFP is have a conversation with Mike Tardif, who's the executive director. And I believe the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission is the keeper of the model, because depending on how some of these conversations go, there might be a need to have the model updated accordingly so we can say, well, what really happens if we extend Whitney Road south to Sewell's Falls Road? Or what happens if we build Store Street north and south? Or what happens if we build other roads that are in the master plan? So that's one piece I need to talk about with Mike, which I haven't done yet. Yep.
Good. That was one. The second one, I think Councilor Todd mentioned this a little bit, sort of other groups, because it gets to the regional nature of Concord and what we are as a capital city, groups like the Chamber, right, and so that's the real economic, sort of group in the city, in involving them. They've been more involved lately with their local government affairs group. Yeah, I know I see Ari in the back. And, and making sure that the folks in the Chamber and members of the Chamber are involved. And then question, what is the use of AI in this process? And I certainly don't have an answer for that. I don't know how it's going to come up.
Yeah, it already has in our economic development.
It already has. So the Chamber needs to be involved certainly in the economic development portions of things. I was envisioning them more as one of the stakeholders that we have. Yeah. We can. I have no problem, having our consultant meet with the Chamber of Commerce multiple times to talk about things as we move forward. But I also, we can work that into this in a little more detail.
Other organizations like that as well.
The in-town Concords of the world.
Yep. So we can add that.
That was Councilor Todd. He read about sort of the economic side of it and the businesses, right? And I think that's really important to make sure, even though we want all the residents of Concord to be part of this, many people do work here that don't live here, and they pay a lot of taxes, and they create a lot of jobs in the city, and they should be included.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the AI piece, I don't, it's such a new thing. I'm anticipating that some of the there was an email that Councilor Schlosser asked us to send to you, which we did, and about AI.
That was good.
And, there might be interesting ways that AI gets worked into some of these things, like analysis of community, of feedback that we get, which, would make the process much more efficient.
And it made it approachable, and I think it just went like wildfire. If you read the article, and it was about Bowling Green, Kentucky, and if you read through the article and the amount of feedback they got for a 50,000 person, city, they got tons and tons of feedback that the AI was able to kind of boil down and put it into bite-sized pieces that they were able to then action on it and put listening groups together around this or around this or around that. And it was very, it's very visionary in some cases, but you click on the links that were in that article, the place in Seattle, I can't remember the name of it, but whatever it was, that was kind of the aggregator. It's open source. It doesn't cost anything. So it's not, feedback, Survey Monkey or something like that. It's you just click on the link and you right from a Facebook site or whatever, and you ask your question. And it's not, you don't go through a survey, you ask a question. What about this? What about all the questions that Councilor Todd got then become part of the record, and then if 3 or 4 people ask them, it kind of migrates up. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is, and I can't confirm this, but if anybody took the parking survey that was involved with the State Street Garage, that survey, depending on how you answered certain questions, asked you different questions.
Yep.
So I think that's also part of the role the AI is going to play is, tailoring specific feedback through the response process.
Do you park in Concord? No. Thank you for your testimony. Have a nice day. Okay, yes.
I would
Teresa.
just say, having responded to a lot of RFPs in my career and also working with clients to respond to RFPs and watching how they do it, I would put in here maybe in the beginning or the end, but in the beginning, one, the flexibility. That this is not, because it reads wooden. And, when you read something that reads wooden, because you want to get it, you answer it wooden. And I think if you're going to spend city money, you need to hire consultants who are creative, who are innovative, and who are really flexible. And I think they can do, if you get really good people, they can do a lot working with the community groups, et cetera, to really get them excited about some of the innovations and some of the things that can go. So I would somehow or another in your beginning, your opening paragraph, say this is not even a framework, it's a bare bones skeleton. And
encourage them to be creative in their response.
Encourage them to be creative, encourage them to be innovative. It'll be interesting to see how many come in with AI components. I mean, it really will be. And there's so many, and there's so many other things out there now that people are doing this. It would be, you could get some really interesting stuff. My only other comment is kind of following on Councilor Todd, and I haven't read this closely, but I'll read it closely and give you comments. But I know what you're doing and you're visioning, but I just wonder, to the integration, all of this is totally, I think in a very integrated way, in a strategic way, but it's all integrated. And so your housing, your economic development, your tax base, all integrated. But you've got the vision at the beginning. And how do you know, how do I know as a reader how you got to the vision? I've got these chapters, but it goes vision, chapters, and implementation. And I kind of want you to lead me down the path. If we have this chapter on housing and this chapter on his the natural and cultural resources and all that. And when you integrate them all together, this is how we see the city and things moving forward. And hopefully, I think certainly it looks like they'll have in each chapter recommendations. But I'd really hope if you hire a good consultant, they've got experience, they really equate some of this to the experiences they've seen in other places. Yeah, I think you've got a good framework. I just would make sure you're telling them the more creative, the better for the less money.
We can emphasize that. We can emphasize, hey, make some suggestions about AI in the public process.
I wouldn't even tell them. Let them see what I'd let them. Yeah, if you ask me stuff, I'm going to sit there and think. If I don't know what you want, I know kind of what you want. I'm going to be really creative and kind of go, well, I hope nobody else thought about this.
The other thing too is, for a project like this is probably much in the weeds, but staff, we're planning on having a pre-proposal meeting with interested consultants. It will not be mandatory. Sometimes it is, but to get some feedback from consultants, similar to what you're providing tonight, of hey, and they'll ask, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? Have you thought about this? And then usually there's an addendum that gets issued by the city to try and clarify or expand. So that will also happen as part of the process here.
So if I can recommend it, I agree 100% with what Teresa just said about the creativity and the preparation piece, and it's right the beginning in section 8, proposal preparation. It's on page 9 of the RFP. If we took that proposal preparation and in the first paragraph say, we want innovative, we want some innovation. We want to be able to look at all the things we're doing, how we're changing, what we're going to be 50 years from now type of thing. So just one little paragraph, and then everything else is fine. Other than I'd get rid of the bold underlines. I don't like that. But other than that, it's just, and I get why it's done, but it's a little wooden to use Teresa's words. But that's a perfect spot for, we encourage, non-traditional thoughts and what, I don't want to say that, but come up with some verbiage that basically entices people to take a shot through and read the 80 pages and figure it out, because, we want to see some different ideas. We don't want to just see the same boilerplate proposals that you're going to get.
Not to bag on RPCs, you don't want the Regional Planning Commission proposal for a master plan.
No, yeah.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
The other thing I was trying to drive home in the RFP is we might not feel this way because we're here, many of us been here for a long time. Concord's an extremely well-planned community. There's a mountain of documents that are out there, and we're going to stand on the shoulders of those, and we're going to say, yep, that idea is still relevant, and let's build on it, and that idea is not anymore, and let's cast it aside. But that's the other thing I'm trying to drive home to the consultants is, Concord is not your average community when you have a history with planning that goes back to the 1930s, and you've been very diligent about it.
So, if there's no other questions, are we comfortable having staff go ahead and get this out to the street? Yeah, Councilor Todd?
I guess one thing is I'd like to ask staff if they would because I had some folks, as you know, we've talked about this, reach out to me, and I kind of expressed to them that there might be a period of time where they could provide comment.
I did
right?
as well, yep.
So to accommodate that, I'm wondering if we could work with staff and see what they would be comfortable with, like having a certain time period. You and I could notify the folks that have contacted us directly that are very interested in this, and that way at least those folks would have a chance to provide their comments and thoughts and so forth. It may not materially change the RFP, but I think it's a good process to...
I was thinking along the same lines, where if we gave staff the ability to stay on schedule and get this out, but fed back information to the groups that we've been hearing from, and have a public hearing next month, have a public conversation next month at the meeting, and if something material comes up, if staff determines, hey, this is material, let's do an addendum to the RFP or something. Are you amiable to that? I don't think there's any problem with that, is there?
No, that keeps us on schedule and gives the board an opportunity to...
If that's acceptable...
So that would be fine.
I
Yeah,
think
that'd be
I'd like to
better
do that.
actually, just continue as you
Absolutely.
suggested with
and
the
then 6
public
months from
hearing.
now, maybe, hey, we're getting some feedback on this, let's talk about this a bit. So if we can put that on the schedule for next month, we'll put it on the schedule for next month. And again, welcome the folks to come in and just hey, and again, I think a lot of it is just haven't had a chance to review it. I want to think about it. I want to look at other RFPs that are out there. I want to look at other documents. So if we're good with that, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts other than that, but if we're good with that, we can give them the nod and say, get it out, and we'll go from there.
My one question to the board on that is when and where would you like that put on the agenda, given what I believe is going to be a very full agenda for December?
I think it's going to be too long to entertain.
Because if it's at the end of the night, I don't know how many people are going to be willing to sit through a lot of stuff to do that.
Could we limit the time, and start 6:30 to 7, as long as we have a quorum, and just limit it to a half hour?
Yeah, we could do that.
Get a timer, everybody can only speak 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm amenable to coming in
do
at
that.
6:30 and having just a public meeting.
I don't really want to be here until midnight.
Yeah, no, I don't either, and it's going to be a busy meeting next month.
The date of the board's meeting in
December
December.
17th.
You can also do what they do with the state rules. You can say, public comment should be in by whatever, December 12th, and if you can't do written comment, you can come to the hearing.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's right. That
works that
obviously
way.
should be an option still for that.
Sure, provide
Please
public
encourage people to send us electronic
communications and be part of the record.
Encourage people to do it, because if you've done it electronically, then you've got time you all have time to digest it, so you can say at the meeting, you know, we've heard from a lot of people who want this
Yeah,
included or
yeah.
this, that, and another. So, yeah, I'd encourage people to send in public comment by a certain period.
Everybody okay with the 6:30 start on the 17th?
I mean, we just had to have a quorum, so if people can't be here, then
I mean, if you have to,
don't miss that.
runs a little long, that's fine, we just start our other meeting a little bit late, so.
Yeah.
Mike, you don't have to be here at 6:30, so. Okay, we good? You got direction, we're good? We're good? Everybody's good? All right. I think that's it, right? Any other business to come before the board this evening?
I have nothing else tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn. We have a second? Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.